Look, Snipedown's tweet says literally, I'm switching from PC, where I can get my like max frames, right, if I've got the right rig, to Xbox, which I think it's at least 60 frames, right? When Sundance ends up on an extended ski holiday and you end up talking to a DGTV with an Australian in it. How the did you end up like this, mate? Wrong side of the deal, homie.
Well, we got a lot of stuff to get into. So that being said, we're going to start with Halo. I'm wearing my MLG old school hoodie to bring it on back. Halo came back to us. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it in episode 1 when they had announced Raleigh, HCS Raleigh. Watched quite a bit of it this weekend. Got an incredible MLG vibe from it, as a lot of people were tweeting. Looked like an old MLG, smelled like one, felt like one. Your initial thoughts on Halo coming back and how much of it you caught this weekend? You know, full disclosure, were you busy? Did you catch much of it? Because I can fill you in if you didn't.
Yeah, no, not as much as I would have liked to. I did obviously look at a lot of the hype around the event. I'll be honest with you, like, you know, I know the location choice and the format and the stage setup, I think a lot of this was driven by the nostalgia of the past, right? Which is fine. I think that's totally fine. The viewership was also really good for this particular event. It definitely felt like, you know, MLG getting back to their roots in a big way. And look, it's great. I think that, you know, for your kickoff major to take a fond look back at the past. But part of me also hopes that, you know, we're going to see some innovation in terms of the format and sort of the offering for this particular tournament. But I mean, it seems sick. When was the last time we had something in Raleigh? Right?
Yeah.
With the last Halo major. So it was cool. They brought back the big team battle showdown as well with Golden Boy and Walshy, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they have a great storyline going with those two. Obviously, they've known each other for years. Rivalry going back forever, those two just talking smack online. And again, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking like, what are you talking about, Scott? MLG's dead. They're gone. MLG, through a various series of acquisitions and selling, became an MLG property that became Activision Blizzard property. All the people that ran and built that either went to work for Activision Blizzard for a while or never went there, but they all kind of regrouped under a bunch of money under Vindex, the venture capital firm, so to speak, whether it's Anbox over here that runs esports teams or Esports Engine, that is a full-service tournament organizer, creation company. This was run by Esports Engine for the HCS. They'll do all the events. So that's when I say it's MLG, it's like Adam Epicelli. It's a lot of the same people. Ryan Thompson, production guy, same guys.
Sundance.
Yeah. So again, and again, it shows. It is they're putting their shows on again, right? And it was cool. Now let's again. Great to see Halo back. Great to see it being a good esport. We talked about some issues last week about the keyboard mouse situation. A
minor one. Just
a minor one, you know, auto aim, that kind of stuff. Well, now they've done their first big LAN, right? And good. Great to see a big LAN. Great to see a LAN that has a lot of grassroots elements to it. Big open stations, big open bracket. Lots of people playing Halo on the weekend, not just the pro teams. But what came with that, this looks really good. While we're running some B-roll of this, one of the things I also like, we always talk about production. Again, another great stage by them. They did it in a very old school head-to-head style where the two teams are literally, you know, 10 feet apart from each other, but facing each other, kind of, instead of facing the audience, they kind of face the trash talk of each other. Really neat.
I'm not trying to be funny, but like, there's like a kind of a shortage of masks going on. I don't want to be that guy, right? Because these guys are on stage and all that, but I see it in the crowd as well. You know, when COD, I think when the CDL tried to run that LAN event and then a bunch of people in the audience complained of, you know, getting COVID after the event, I kind of thought that maybe it would be more stringent. Is that because of the part of the country it's in? Or am I just completely, you know, out of the loop here and we're all going back to normal now? Like, what's going on?
Well, I saw the same thing, and I think there were two protocols that were supposed to be in place. And again, wasn't there, didn't necessarily read all the rules and regulations as a spectator or a player. I think the pros were in one zone where they didn't have to be masked up, but I believe everybody had to show, you know, proof of vaccination or negative test before they got in. But I thought all spectators in the venue were supposed to be masked at all times. So to your point of a lot of people in the audience, definitely not masked. So, you know, just fingers crossed it doesn't turn into any sort of, you know, spread fest.
Yeah. Like, I'm being that guy, right, Scott? I get it, right? Especially if it's like a vaccine mandated event. But like, I have seen, I'm just saying, I've seen these events with like stated safety policies that aren't enforced because it gets too difficult to do, or in reality, or people, or whatever, right? So I'm just like, I want to go to those events as well, but I've also, these people might not have kids. They might not care. They might not even believe COVID exists. So who fucking knows, right? But I would like to attend these events as well, but I would be a little bit dubious about, people not masking up and stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a fucking small thing. And I don't want it to take away from
Yeah.
this event at all, because I think that's just fucking dumb. But
Yeah.
I couldn't help but notice it.
No, I'm with you on that. I notice it at every event. All these as events are starting to come back with a combination of whether studio and players in studio, or now some fans around the world. It's very interesting to see how which TOs are dealing with protocols or not dealing with protocols, and then the outcomes of that. Obviously, this is a problem and an issue with COVID that we're going to have to live with for a while. Anyway, so enough of that little negative. But again, it was an interesting thing that both of us thought about. And again, it's either they didn't follow, it's one thing to set your rules and regulations, but you got to then enforce them, right? You just do, or why set them? But moving on to what became a much bigger drama, right? So, again, big event on LAN now. They started to get a lot of server crashes during their matches, right?
Wait, server crashes or client crashes, Scott?
I think it was client disconnects, actually. I think, if I'm accurate, I think it would have started with client disconnects, but I don't know what was causing it. But I saw a lot of tweets about the latest build of their server and such. So I don't know exactly what was forcing it, and they got it finally solved. It looked like by Saturday afternoon, evening, the crashes were less significant. But I was watching Exit and Ascend. And Game 5 took what had to have been 2-3 hours just to get through the last map, because again, new game, new esport, up and coming, no match medic, no easy rollback. So they're doing the math, going, okay, well now this team has to win 43, has to get 43 kills to win.
No.
It was just not easy, right? It wasn't easy to roll back. And I felt bad for Bravo and Onset is the other caster, I think.
Onset, yeah.
And they were nailing it there, but as you know. And even I know, when you have to fill, there's only so many times you can witty banter your way out of it. After the 5th crash in the same match or whatever it is.
It fucking blows, dude.
Yeah. And they finally were
start talking about something completely different.
Yeah, Onset finally, I can't even apologize anymore. I don't know what, it is what it is. And so bless their hearts, they kept it going. But again, a bummer. They did get it kind of solved. So, the finals were fine. It all seemed to settle down. But again, it's just really disheartening when, you're trying to compete or you're trying to watch. Obviously more important if you're the competitor than the fan at home watching.
Sure.
Just kills all your momentum. They got through it, though. They did that, again, figured it out, whatever it happened to be. I haven't seen any official PRs as to, we figured it out, it was X, Y, and Z. But obviously it became a big thing. That means they didn't fix it,
Scott. That means they just smoothed it over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look, Snipedown's tweet says, literally, I'm switching from PC, where I can get my, max frames, right, if I've got the right rig, to Xbox, which I think it's at least 60 frames, right? We're not 30 FPS gamers on Xbox anymore, I don't think, but I don't know if it goes much higher than that. So Snipedown says, I am taking a performance hit, a quality experience quality hit playing this game, moving to Xbox to avoid these disconnects. These disconnects, by the way, happen online and on LAN by the looks of things. They're occurring in both environments, because I played a bunch of Halo Infinite when it first came out, tried to play a bunch of ranked. A few of my caster mates who are a little bit better at games, were pushing Onyx and stuff like that, and they were getting disconnected from games all the fucking time. And you can't reconnect to the game, Scott. If you disconnect from a game in Halo Infinite, at least this is how it was, you're fucked. You lose a bunch of rating. You can get banned for leaving the game.
Oh, God.
Obviously, there wasn't really much recourse for you there. So a lot of PC players, at the very least, were complaining about this arduous task of trying to climb when they were getting these intermittent crashes. There were a bunch of fixes, tweaks you could do. A couple Halo pros tried a few tweaks of their own, which we'll talk about later. But they shipped a game that had some, I would argue, fairly critical issues with it. And in this case, it can affect the competitive integrity and also just kind of fuck with your tournament. So I think they had to use Xbox dev kits, as Jay's saying in the chat. So listen, I think it's great that out of the box, Scott, they had an esports tournament, they had a kickoff major and stuff like that. But this is the other side of the coin when you're sort of, I won't say rushing, but you're shipping a game to live that has some key issues in it, and then you're trying to, get it played in a competitive setting. Despite this, Still not the worst debut of an esports title, that's for sure. And they've done well to just add water and poof, we have an entire esports event.
Yeah, a little cart before the horse in that sense, right? You got the team skins, you got all this infrastructure laid, you're ready for your first big event. If your game ain't stable, the rest of it kind of don't matter in a way, right? But again, they got it solved. It's like every other event. As long as you get that shit solved as quickly as you can and it doesn't continually happen and become systemic, it's always usually the Friday or the Thursday, day one. Theirs lasts a little longer. Let's move on to some other, this happened before the event. So we're going to bring up this idea of, it goes back to, your ping, the server choices, HCS suspended, Royal 2. Walk us through this a little bit.
Okay, so old mate, as far as I understand, Royal 2, who is a storied competitor, by the way, in Halo Esports, was basically suspended for server manipulation. Now, more specifically, it looks like Royal 2 was able to change something in his game registry that meant that any game that he connected to would be forced to connect to US West servers, right? So it looks like there was some vulnerability where basically you can tell the game that it cannot connect you to any other server than that one. It's a third-party program, which is probably a little bit worse, if I'm honest with you, because it's not like the game had some disadvantage built in. Now, this is likely something that Royal 2 was doing in his ranked games, right? And just making sure he only got US West servers. Unfortunately, he didn't change this shit, and these motherfuckers were playing in the qualifiers for Raleigh, as I understand. I'll be honest with you. This is a pretty... Again, he was suspended, right? Now, as far as I understand, the rest of his teammates aren't necessarily want to play on US West servers, or at least they're not, they're not based there, all of them. This guy's Royal 2's in Canada. I think he must be in Vancouver, something like that. So potentially disadvantaging his teammates, forcing the server to US West, obviously, to give him the sort of best ping. And, I think what he said is that I sort of left it on, like this wasn't the plan. And his teammates were like, I mean, how is this cheating if the three other of his teammates are disadvantaged by it or whatever? But a very interesting situation here where, he, as the individual, has been suspended. I'm surprised that the team wasn't DQ, but I guess there are some mitigating factors, right, Scott? Because it was just him that it benefited in theory.
Yeah, and to your point, everyone was basically like, dude, like, that's such a, again, cheating's the wrong word. Ideally, he obviously left it by accident. But, like, in what world, because people were like, in what world does a guy cheat and actually hurt his own teammates at the same time? Like, because to your point, like, he kind of screwed a couple of his teammates. And then, obviously, by getting caught. And I say caught as if he did it intentionally. But, and again, to your point, like, arguably maybe even one of the best players of some of those versions of Halo, not storied, but maybe the GOAT of some of those versions. So
we're not talking like the Ogre brothers level, right? But this guy was, definitely highly respected. You know what I mean?
And this also pissed off. Well, and it also pissed off Sentinels so much that at one point they said they're not coming. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna DQ our guy? Yeah. We're not coming. We're just not gonna come now." That lasted like what? A couple hours? I don't know. And then someone had decided to join them.
It's a fucking kickoff major. What are you talking about, guys? Okay, man, if you're gonna make threats like this, like, at least follow it up, or at least make sure you're in a position to actually do this. Anyway, they got a substitute player. Remember this motherfucker? Formal, obviously, previous Call of Duty world champion with Optic. Fucking this guy. I mean, if you know anything about COD, you know exactly who this guy is by sight. He retired and was playing Halo, right? I think he was on Space Station, and he was like, he got picked up by Sentinels. He's like, yeah, sorry, boys. This might be a better opportunity for me. So off he goes. With bearing in mind that the guys, I think he's still a streamer under the Optic umbrella, right, Scott? But here he is, I think, in this game, playing with some of his would-be teammates. So there you have it.
Yeah, and again, I feel bad. I don't know the details behind Space Station. Is he just friends with them and he was like playing with them? Obviously, he didn't blow off a contract with them, but somehow Sentinels was able to say, hey, come play with us, and he did, which had to be a bummer for a Space Station because obviously they attended the event as well. I think they had to scramble maybe to get somebody. Again, didn't research that side of this story. But where this gets really, really funny, obviously, he's Optic family through and through one way or another. He ends up, Sentinels ends up playing Optic several times during the tournament, right? Deliciously, loses once, Formal does, right? And Optic sends Sentinels to the lower bracket, right? But then, when it counts, when it matters, when you win or go home, Formal sent his family home.
Yeah, Sentinels had to run the whole lower bracket, by the way, Scott. I mean, they start on uppers, and I think they lose immediately in round 2, they lose to Optic. So they had to run through. They had to beat, some sort of, teams that are less known, Gamers First, Unsigned Talent. They beat Ascend, they beat Space Station, and then they beat Optic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So kind of wild here. And this is obviously the Optic result. Now, bear in mind, it was, Formal wasn't playing for Optic in Halo, right? He was playing for Space Station. Yeah. So lost to Optic, right? But actually did go on to play against, his former, current, still previous team or what it was.
Yeah.
Interesting storyline. And Sentinels do really well. They end up losing to FaZe Clan in lower semis there. So I think they get 4th place ultimately at the event. But people were definitely commenting on Formal kind of dropping some dookies on people. The guy's fucking cracked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Social was having a blast with it, right? And I think what's also neat is like in an Optic team, I got Pistola, who is again a legendary. When he was playing, he was the youngest player, crushing everybody. Obviously, they've all grown up, and so it's not like Optic was a shit team that they beat. They had a decent chance there too. So fun stuff. I guess it'll be interesting to watch Formal's official Halo career now and see what he does. I doubt he will pursue, but you never know. And obviously, tournament continued. We had a winner, and the big final was Cloud9 coming in, and they got people in my ear.
It was E United. It was C9 versus E United.
Yeah, E United, which again, E United, a team, if you're familiar with esports, is certainly a household, I would say, indigenous esports brand name. But when you start thinking of Cloud9s and Liquids and G2s, they don't resonate in that scale of world notoriety necessarily, maybe in some of the games. So to see them sitting right there, it's kind of nice for E United because they're always like a little second fiddle, I think, as a big organization. And obviously Cloud9 wins it. They get to now have the historic, we've won the very first one. There's a bunch of these coming, the HCS tournament series. And I also think we didn't talk about it at the beginning of Halo, but much like Call of Duty, what I think is also neat, because we always talk about just the esport of these things, right? Much like Call of Duty, Halo plays a format where they play different game types to find winners, right? So you just don't have to be good at Slayer or CTF or Search and Destroy in Call of Duty. Like, it's a mix of your skill sets, so you have to recruit for a mix of your skill sets. In Counter-Strike, we worry about oppers and entry and those kind of things, and IGLs. You have to worry about a little bit of that in these games, but then you've got this whole other slice. And I've always been intrigued by that. Again, I first saw it when I met Halo back in the day. I was like, oh, that's neat. You play this, this, and this, and then you decide who. Of course, they also had extended series rules and all sorts of other craziness. But I always thought that was neat. I brought that up with you because you guys in Overwatch do a version of that as well. You've got a couple different game types over there. You've messed with that over the years. Which ones are official? What are your thoughts on that type of division of an esport?
It's kind of like Call of Duty in the same way. Halo doesn't have mandated roles on your teams, but you will have a Slayer, you'll have objective players, you'll have support players, right? So that will influence how you approach each round. I've worked a couple Halo Championship Series events in the past, so I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with it. I was usually working as like a side stage reporter on a lot of those. I did one back in Cologne in 2016. I worked with all these guys before, like Gaskin and Bravo and Strongside and stuff like that. So it's like Overwatch, where it's like you queue within a certain role, much closer to like League of Legends is now. Halo and Call of Duty, they do have their defined roles, but they are decided on by the players, right? And they're not codified officially, but you will see them referred to on broadcasts and stuff like that. And look, I want to point out, I think Cloud9 was definitely, they were a part of the Halo Championship Series, of course. 2016, like back at the height of sort of Halo esports before we saw this little hiatus, but they were not like a top team. I think they would like come 4th place, in some of these sort of championship series here. So this is a huge jump for them, like a sick way to start off, a new era of Halo esports here. Not that they're necessarily sort of underrated, but they're just not nearly as storied as like some of your other names here. If I look back, it's like, back in like that, they were still competing in Halo Esports, like the Halo 5 send off, which was halfway through the year, and still competing in the Halo Pro series, which has been going on this entire time, right? So
Yeah.
they've been there, they've been a fixture, but by no means undisputed sort of top dogs here. So a great way for them to start here in a new game.
Well, and yeah, and this is awesome for them. I think also one of the interesting things about Halo Esports specifically is, again, with its origin in MLG, like there's two types of teams of the history of Halo. There is the branded, owned by MLG brands that we all know and love, that we fell in love with, but those weren't run by entrepreneur types. The Final Bosses, the Carbons, the Straight Rippins, those are all MLG property teams, right? That was their thing.
Yep.
They ran all that, right? So you've got all this history, but then Final Boss got recruited by Team 3D. And then when the entrepreneurial, like we were one of the entrepreneurial teams that came in as EG, we got a Halo team. So there was like this old world that got opened up when the world opened up. So I think that's kind of neat because you bring up Strong Side, right? Strong Side brought back Straight Rippin' this week, right? Again, a brand that he played for, but really didn't own, right? But now he gets to own this thing and be an esports team owner, go for it, right? And I used to go round and round with Adam Apicella and Sundance because, again, I was the EG guy. I'm like, you guys, you can't own all the teams and run the league.
You're outing yourself, man, as like the Silver Fox Old Boys Club. Except they ended up with money. What the fuck?
I know.
Right? You ended up what?
And we'd go round and round.
With me, motherfucker.
Yeah, because they controlled the T-shirts. Because, again, when we all rolled in, they were like, well, we have to approve your T-shirts. Because I'm like, what do you mean approve our T-shirts? Because they're used to, they made the Final Boss jerseys, so they'd put the Mountain Dew logo, they'd put whatever, and when all the freelance teams came in, they're like, no, that's not how we do it in all the other games, man. And we had to figure out how we work together with their sponsors, our stuff, but really neat. So the reason I bring it up,
Dude,
long rant.
Sundance ends up on an extended ski holiday, and you end up talking to a fucking CGTV with an Australian in it. How the fuck did you end up like this, mate? Wrong side of the deal, homie.
Fuck me now. No, I love you, Sundance. Just give it to gold, Sundance. Old joke. Reason I bring it up is what I'm interested in is what Strong Side did. Because some of these brands are nostalgic. They probably have some buying power. Could Final Boss come back as a business? Some of those teams like he's doing. I was very intrigued when he announced that. I was like, oh, shit. Which also means that whoever owns those brands via the MLG sold was able to give that back out, right? Anyway, interesting side story. We'll see. Because if Final Boss came back, people would buy shirts like nobody's business right away.
It wouldn't be hard to leverage a previously beloved brand, especially with how nostalgia is. We saw a stat actually that there was like more people watching the Halo Championship Series than people playing the game on PC at the time. So that's one thing to be fair. But just keep an eye out to see how that might be affected because if there's nostalgia pushing Halo and if it's the only thing pushing Halo, then it might peter off. So I hope that doesn't happen because I think the people involved are good enough to make this one go on its own steam. But that's one thing I noticed as someone that comes from a game that has had some dubious attendance in our esports side and difficulty reaching the casual player. I would just flag that for future reference.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And it's always 6 months after a project. How's it doing? How's its legs? Whether it's a show like this or anything, everything gets exciting in the beginning. I need to correct myself, Tashi. Hey, by the way, thank you for coming, Tashi. Nice to see you. Congratulations. Tashi's one of the main guys behind the HCS. Is in our chat. He's badass.
What's up?
I got T Squared and Flame Sword confused, not by how they look or act, obviously very different, but their teams. Straight Rippin', T Squared, Flame Sword, status quo. And that's right, because
I didn't live this reality. I was not like a console guy.
Yeah.
I was around like Call of Duty 4 and the TF2 world. So I mean, console Halo and COD was fucking massive in Australia. Really, really big. Like the guys who started, who did ESL Australia came from that background primarily. Okay. But yeah, that just wasn't my world. I'll be honest with you right now. So I kind of feel like I missed out. There's so much more. I hate this word, but brotherhood, and there's like a lot of nostalgia, and there's a lot of real halcyon memories about this era of just carting your CRT screen and your fucking console down to a LAN in the Midwest. So,
but it gets even better though if your favorite game never went away. Know what I'm talking about?
Okay, CS.
Yeah,
Okay,
baby.
dude. Okay.
And in all deference to T Squared, I think he actually brought Straight Ribbon back a couple years ago. So he actually was the first one to kind of bring one of those brands back as his own, which is cool that the MLG gang or whoever owns that shit is letting them do that. Let's move on. Great shit. Tashi, again, thanks for stopping by, chat. We will be keeping an eye on your stuff. It was really cool to watch. So fingers crossed that you have a great year of Halo. And maybe we'll get you on the show, or one of you guys on the show. Maybe we need to get a pro Halo guy on the show, get an interview going. Maybe
You motherfuckers can get inside a TV too.
get inside our
Cozy.
Crane TV. All right, let's move on.